So I'd like to start this segment by saying list of people that should be in jail right now. And so that list starts off with the director of the CDC. So here's a little bit of a, whoops, my bad. We totally fucked up, and now Omicron is uncontrolled spread all across the country, and there is no hope at all of ever controlling it ever because the CDC sucks dick and it's garbage and it's shit on my shoes, and we fucked up big time. These are people that should be in jail. This is genocidal behavior that was exemplified by the CDC here. The director should be marched out in handcuffs for even thinking that it could possibly be a thing to do, to cut the quarantine isolation guidelines in half, and then also recommend people go back to work with a fever. Again, I want to remind everyone, before I read this article, I want to remind everyone the debacle at the CDC. They cut the isolation guidelines from 10, which is already not like the entire symptomatic period of COVID for a lot of people, into 5. And then they said 5 days if asymptomatic, and then a day later, they changed it to, or symptoms are resolving. So let's assume you have a fever of 101.3, right? And then your fever goes to 101.1. Well, your fever is resolving, so therefore go back to work. That's what the CDC says. Dr. Fauci, someone who should also be in federal prison, was trying to sell this on television as if this was a good idea. The coronavirus is a deadly disease, and the CDC wants you to work during a pandemic so that you die. Why do you need to work? Oh, but you're an essential worker. What's essential working? Oh, Burger King, Wendy's, fucking retail, clothing stores. These are not things that need to be open right now. We should be paying people to stay at home, give them food delivery, pharmaceutical delivery, and pay their rent and utilities so that we can fucking end this goddamn pandemic. But the CDC said no. We are okay with murdering, committing a mass genocide of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of mostly poor people, right? For the sake of capital. And that is what they have done. So now they're going to try to go back. It was a bad deal. I'm sorry. We messed up. No. If I mess up and thousands of people die, you know what would happen? I would go to jail, right? And what other instance can you murder 1,000+ people and then just get away with it and say, yeah, my bad? Well, actually, in politics, that's how it works. And that's why these people get away with it. These are the most prolific serial killers in world history. Politicians, the CDC director throughout this pandemic has failed. Ever since they said fully vaccinated people can take their masks off, I was skeptical of that. I kept my mask on. Now, sometimes, I forgot a mask and went to a grocery store with that one a couple times back in May or whatever. But, either way, the idea, they've just flopped on messaging. Biden said he declared victory from the virus on Independence Day. This whole thing has been a shit show, and the CDC is mostly to blame. And again, the Biden administration has done nothing. They have fucked around, and now the entire population of the U.S. is sick. Almost everyone I know that has successfully managed to avoid getting COVID throughout this entire pandemic has gotten it. I got sick a couple weeks ago. I don't know if it was COVID. I have no idea. I tried to get a test, and the only thing I could find was spending $40 or registering with the state and waiting 4 days for a test to be mailed to me. Right? None of this shit makes any fucking sense. But I want to read this. Dr. Rochelle Walensky assumed her new role as the director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention last January with a vow to restore trust in the agency. Failed! Do not pass go directly to jail. That's what I have to say on that one. The last fall, several months into the job, and after a series of messaging missteps, Walensky sought out media training. For months, Walensky has met privately with prominent Democratic media consultant Mandy Grunwald to improve her communication skills and continue to do so, according to a person familiar with the previously unreported sessions. On Friday, Walensky will hold CDC's first independent media briefing since the summer, after deciding abruptly this week that she wanted to take questions head-on, according to a person familiar with the decision to hold the briefing. So again, this is a mass murderer. This is one of the most genocidal maniacs in human history, right? They said that you need to go to work even if you're sick. That's what they said. They got a call from the Delta CEO saying, hey, we need more workers. Can you change the guidelines? She was like, all right, cool. And then they changed the guidelines again and said, go to work Even if you're sick. Even if you're sick. It's fucked up. It comes as the agency is facing a barrage of criticism over confusion stemming from its new guidelines on isolation for people who test positive for COVID-19. Beyond Walensky's personal messaging struggles, the agency has faced criticism for months over its times confusing guidance surrounding the pandemic, with one former senior Biden administration official saying the agency appears to be overthinking its communications. Scientists within the CDC have also grown increasingly frustrated with Walensky's handling of the public health guidance, a CDC scientist told CNN. According to the scientist, Walensky largely crafted the new guidance with the help of a small circle of top advisors, eschewing the traditional process of rigorous scientific vetting by experts at the CDC. Again, Delta CEO called, and then they all gathered in a room and said, how can we get away with this? And then they all decided, well, let's just fucking do it and see what happens. R equals 10 is the rate of infection, basically, which I think it means basically if you are infected, the average amount of spread is that you'll give it to 10 people or something. I'm not entirely sure if that's true. That being said, lockdowns would objectively work because it's not like it's like the disease is going through the atmosphere. If everyone stayed home and did not interact, how the fuck is it going to spread? Lockdowns are the obvious solution. So I disagree with you, Mike. We need to lock down. The idea that you think that I can spread coronavirus from my house or my apartment to across the street grocery store, that's ridiculous. Lockdowns are the only solution. That's why your statement of saying it's our return rate of 10 or whatever is more in favor of lockdowns. That means lockdowns are the only necessary tools. We need universal masking and universal lockdowns besides essential businesses. And Wendy's is not an essential business. Right, Domino's is not an essential business. The department store is not an essential business. The fucking barbershop's not an essential business. Right, the only essential businesses are food manufacturing and production and the USPS. We should do a big call to service to fund the USPS and have more workers at the USPS. That's what we need. Those are the essential businesses. So I'm just saying. But let's go back into this article. The director, a well-regarded infectious disease expert, apparently not, with no prior government experience, is now responsible for explaining that decision and other COVID-19 guidance both in public and briefings with top White House officials. Since assuming a role, Walensky has worked to improve her internal communications and sought to cultivate... I'm not even going to bother, I'm going to just skip that. Because it's just, this is it's trying to make her out to be oh, she's a struggling heroine. Oh, she's trying so hard and she's made mistakes along the way. I don't buy that shit. Marched out in handcuffs. Go to prison. Go directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You fucked up and thousands of people will die as a result of your horrible actions. Go the fuck to jail. In what other context can any other citizen of this country murder thousands of people and not go to jail? Just become the CDC director and then fuck around. That's the only way you can get away with it, right? The latest messaging setback happened last month when the CDC cut its recommended isolation period for those with COVID-19 to 5 days and recommended people who test positive should continue to wear a mask in public for 5 additional days. That's the thing, right? That's how fucking crazy this is. So, okay, they didn't recommend universal masking, and they didn't say, all right, we're going to give every single person in this country 10, 15, 30, N95 masks, and you wear 5 at once. No. No. They said, if you test positive, go back to work, and then continue to wear the mask for 5 days, and then question mark? What? What? You just take the mask off after 5 days, even if you're still symptomatic, even if you still have a fever, even if you're still contagious? Why? What? Again, this is mass murder for the sake of capital. The CDC director is in bed with Delta CEO and probably other CEOs, and they made a deal with a devil to murder thousands and thousands and thousands of American civilians for the sake of short-term quarterly profits for capitalists. That's what this is. Behind the scenes, other federal public health officials also questioned the decision not to include testing. Both Dr. Anthony Fauci, the president's top medical advisor on COVID-19, and the U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy publicly made clear clarifications were coming. That doesn't help. That doesn't help. Oh yeah, we're going to clarify later. How about you clarify right now, dumb motherfucker? Amid the public backlash, Walensky sought to reassure fellow senior federal health officials, telling Fauci and Murthy that the lack of a testing requirement in the isolation guidance was not motivated by nationwide testing shortages. Oh, okay, so we're not going to tell people to test. It has nothing to do with the fact that we have no tests in this country. It has to do with, question mark? Again, folks, I'm not gonna... This person should be in jail. They are a mass murderer. This is a serial killer. These are assassins. These are hitmen. They were paid to murder American civilians for short-term quarterly profits of CEOs and capitalist industries. That's the end. That's the fucking end of the story. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go directly to fucking jail. These are criminals. Now, again, the mainstream media can try to make you think that they're not criminals. Oh, they just made a mistake. If I made a mistake and 5,000 people died, that's one hell of a mistake. Like, seriously, imagine what other context you can make a mistake in that results in mass death in the thousands and thousands and thousands, and then you don't go to jail.